Awesome. Thank you guys so much for joining. I'm really, really excited to introduce your ministry to our church. Just to get started, I wanted to ask sort of some of the history and some of the things that have brought this issue to your hearts personally. How did you guys get interested in pro-life advocacy, and what's the history of how the Lord brought you into this work?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'll speak for myself and let Kristen kind of speak because her story is a little different. But for me, I actually grew up in a pro-choice household with parents that were not believers. So when I went to college at Michigan State University, I was a pro-choice agnostic, and it was kind of just a wild experience because obviously I'm at MSU. It's not a bastion of conservative Christian thought. And I took a bunch of philosophy classes. One of my professors came in and said he wants to disprove the necessity of God, and that was his goal for the semester.
Wow.
And he did his best at doing that, but he was fairly level-headed or wanted to present the opposite view, and he had me read, he had all of us read a few Christian philosophers, more conservative thinkers, and even though he did that with the intention of debunking those writers, for some reason God just really captured my heart with that, and it led to a change in my view on faith, and quickly led to a change in my view on the issue of abortion in particular as a natural
Mm,
like flowing of that.
mm,
From there, I became pro-life, became Christian. And over the
mm,
past several years, I've been involved in many ways in the pro-life movement, speaking, training, going and talking with pro-choice people on college campuses in particular. And last year, quit my job in the tech industry and came on as the full-time executive director of Protect Life Michigan. We're now the largest pro-life organization, statewide pro-life organization in the country. We have about
mm.
45 employees. In the summer, our headcount is going to be going close to 100 with all of our interns that we bring on. They're in high school and college. And we exist to change culture primarily on college campuses across the state by engaging in loving, empathetic, and truthful conversations with pro-choice students. But
Mm.
Kristen
Excellent.
was actually the very first employee of Protect Life Michigan back
I
about 10 years
was.
ago.
Yeah,
Mm,
we've been around since 2005, but it was a really small team of just a handful of college students that would plan a trip to the March for Life in DC every year, and just
mm,
kind of share ideas for what they were doing on campus. I had been pro life my whole life. I was homeschooled, raised in a Christian household, and cared very deeply, especially hearing the testimonies of women who've had abortions and just the weight they carried from that decision. I felt so much love for them and felt like
mm,
I don't want anyone to go through the things that I've
mm,
heard from them. And but
mm,
at the same time, I felt like, I'm a kid. What's a 15-year-old going to do about an issue this big? And I
mm,
met Protect Life Michigan as a college student, and they were the first ones to really say, you actually have a lot of influence over your peers, and there is a place for you in this fight to share this message with people who desperately need it. They're making life or death decisions, they're figuring out what
mm.
they believe about the world. And that was so exciting to really realize I could make a difference. And they gave me an opportunity to, because they had all these college groups all over the state that I could be a part of. And so I started a group at my college. And when I graduated, actually, I remember I was a piano teacher, and I came home one night and I told Trevor, I'm like, I got to do pro life work full time. I'm going to quit my job and become a pro life missionary at this group that has a website and $3,000 in the bank. And he was like, okay. Pretty big change. So we figured it out. And it's been incredible to be a part of. But we just it's amazing to see how God has grown this from this like ragtag group of students to now we're really leading the way, and how to have winsome conversations that change people's mind, that help people who have had abortions heal, and so many
Mm,
other things.
that's spectacular. Yeah, you mentioned a little bit the mission and the vision of Protect Life Michigan. Can you guys just sort of explain a little bit of what makes you guys unique? And not all pro-life organizations go about things the same way. There's sometimes, unfortunately, disagreements, debates about how that should happen. Can you guys share a little bit about what makes you guys different?
Yeah, yeah. So primarily what we do is we focus on recruiting and activating young people to go out and reach other young people. We do that for a couple main reasons. One is youth, those under 29 years old, are 2 to 5 times more likely to change their mind on the issue of abortion than those that are older, which is kind of intuitive, but it's really important to be aware of.
Mm.
Um, but also, they're disproportionately targeted by the abortion industry. If you're a college age woman, for example, and strategically, they're all located in these highly populated clusters of population at college campuses for most of the year. So it makes it easy to reach a lot of them. The way that we do that is instead of being a bunch of pro-life people that just gather together and talk about how pro-life we are, we decided to go out to where they're at, to go to their campuses, go to their schools, go to where the events that they might be at, and ask them simple questions. What do you think about abortion? And we start with that conversation. And from there, we train our students and our staff on how to have highly persuasive and effective dialogue on the issue. And when we do talk to a pro-choice student, 34% of the time they'll express to us that they change their mind by the end of that conversation. And
Wow.
we know that number is probably a lot higher. Not everyone's going to admit to us that they change their mind on the spot, but at least 34% of the time, we know that they have a change of opinion based on their what they express to us. So it's really our conversation strategy and our focus on primarily youth. We do a lot of community outreach and stuff as well. So it's not exclusively on college campuses or anything, but our bread and butter and our top focus is young people.
And we recognize that, it's not going to be us that ends abortion. It's going to take the care arm of the movement with thousands of pregnancy centers working together with educational groups like ours and legislative efforts. There's so many things that have to come together, and each one of those groups plays an important role. It's really the team that makes it happen, right? Everybody working alongside each other and whatever God's called them to, but our part is changing public opinion.
Yeah, spectacular. So when you guys describe that, I kind of, particularly with everything that's been in the news for the last 6 months, I think of Turning Point USA. Do you guys have overlap, work alongside them? Are there chapters where it's sort of on the same campus, or what would be some differences or same?
Yeah, it's a little bit different because Turning Point is very political and we're not as much. Sometimes politics come up in the conversation because, of course, abortion is a legislative issue. It's an issue of law, but that's one of the key differences. However, one of the big ways we're alike is that Turning Point is also on college campuses trying to talk to young people and change their mind. And so we've seen enormous growth in our college chapters this fall because so many young people are feeling this courage to speak out and to get involved after what happened on September 10th. And they have a similar model of being on college campuses and reaching young people.
Excellent. Just a question about who sort of connects with you guys. Are you restricted denominationally? Are you only connected to a certain set of churches, or will you take anyone? Do they have to profess to be a Christian to work with you? What are sort of some of the bars that people have to jump over to serve with you?
Yeah, we're not aligned with any particular church or denomination or anything like that. Everyone on staff is Christian. We do sometimes the students that join our clubs that like might be at Michigan State or U of M or something like that. They might not be Christian, but generally speaking, they are. You generally are going to have a Judeo-Christian worldview if you're going to be involved in the pro-life club on campus. But we have had some that are not. And it's interesting. A lot of the times when that happens, give it 6 or 7 months and they're going to be going to church because they're surrounded by a community that is just so committed to truth and love and going and caring for the most vulnerable, being the unborn child, that it radically changes their perspective. I can think of a couple young women right off the top of my head that were professing atheists, strong pro-life women professing atheists, and are now very devout followers of Christ. So
that's very intriguing to me. So if you're not a Christian, what makes you a strong pro-life advocate in your mind?
Yeah, it's kind of, what's the shared worldview that generally speaking, whether you're atheist, Muslim, Christian, we all kind of have is that all human beings deserve to be free from violence. All human beings have the basic equal rights, basic human rights that we should all share. Now, for us, the reason why we think that's so important is because we're image bearers of God. But for other
Mhm.
people, they're going to find some other reason why. But I
Mm.
think God put it on our heart that all of us deserve to be treated fairly. All of us deserve some basic level of human dignity and equality. And abortion is a violation of those human rights. And it's interesting how we can see, and that's what we see on college campus. Like we see people who have never been to church, who are from other countries, who have different faith backgrounds. We still see the issue of abortion, the pro-life view resonate with them because God has instilled in us this basic understanding of how other humans should be treated for the most part. How it plays out,
Interesting.
the whys behind it might be different, but the foundation's always there.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So when I think of Romans 1, that the law that God has written himself on our hearts, and that we all have a perception that there's right and wrong, and his moral attributes have been written on our hearts. That's very striking that you guys see some of those types of people that are not believers working
Exactly
with you.
what we see. And the number of students who will say that they are pro-choice, they support abortion, almost all of them would say, but I don't like it. I wouldn't have one. They understand that there is something about it that's unsettling. They'll say, in a perfect world, we wouldn't have abortion. That's where I see God's law written on us. They get it. They've just bought into this idea that we live in such a messed up world that we have to have this option on the table. And we're trying to help them have a paradigm shift where we say, no, actually, a civilized society shouldn't use violence to solve problems. And they're like, oh, that makes sense, actually.
Interesting. Do some of you that are Christians mix gospel conversation with pro-life advocacy? Are those sort of separated for you? Or I was curious how that
Yeah.
gets kind of worked into conversation.
Yeah. I mean, we really have like two goals when we go into a conversation with someone who's pro-choice. One is to help them see abortion for what it is. The other is to point them towards the grace and forgiveness of Christ, especially because so often the issue of abortion is one of those big barriers to the gospel for many people. It's hard to hear messages of like grace and truth if you're wrestling with the fact that you might have sought the end of your child's life, for example. You might have helped someone do that. So helping them actually like process that issue can be one of the first steps towards a gospel conversation. We balance it because at the same time, like we want to make sure that we recognize that a lot of times someone's on their way or could be on their way in the near future to ending the life of another human being. And in that case, like our first priority is make sure someone is not going to die. Similar to like if I hear that someone's going to go shoot up a school, my first priority is like to protect the kids, right? And ensure their safety. So like we start with that conversation most of the time, but very often, and we train our students on how we can actually talk about the gospel, share forgiveness. We even call it heart apologetics because what we found is like a lot of times we'll be talking to someone and we'll share the basic apologetics. You know, it's a human life. It doesn't deserve violence. It takes the life of another innocent human being, and they get it, but you can tell there's just a barrier there and you don't know what it is. So a lot of times we'll ask something like, you know, do you know anyone that's ever had an abortion? Or do you know anyone that's had a personal experience with this? And that's when like the floodgates open up sometimes. We're like, yeah, I did, or my girlfriend did, or my sister, or whatever. And it's this opportunity to be like, you know, it's not always a head issue. There's a spiritual, there's a heart, there's trauma, there's experiences there that need to be unpacked. And it's one of the best ways we found to share the gospel is sometimes by talking about abortion with people.
Interesting. That's really, really interesting. So shifting kind of the conversation to some of the things that have changed in the ways that people seek out abortions. I was in a youth group. So if you don't know about me, I was raised on the mission field in Mexico. So my whole life till I was 18 was in Spanish in Tijuana, Mexico. We watched a movie. I was just looking it up, Punto y Aparte, a very, very sort of intense abortion, anti-abortion like movie about what it's like to take the life of a baby that's very, very far along, which is obviously very, very grievous. Things have changed where it seems like young ladies can order pills online and end life very, very, soon after conception. How have things changed? How are you guys addressing that as a ministry and helping people think differently maybe than how we used to think about abortion.
Yeah, I think it impacts like our tactics in some ways. Because for example, you used to have to go to Planned Parenthood or to an abortion clinic to get an abortion. And then you'd have sidewalk counselors there. You can have people outside that are ministering and trying to intervene. That's actually now the minority of abortions. Most of the time now, they're doing telemedicine and the pills are being shipped to them, and they never have to go see a doctor. They have to go to a building. It's all done at home. They're told, take these pills. You'll give birth to this child in your bathroom on the toilet, and flush, don't look, basically is the mantra. And it's sad, but that's like 60% of abortions now are from the abortion pill, which is typically up to about 10 weeks. So that means like we can't rely on being like where the women will be at, because they're going to be at their home, which means we actually need to go more into the community and start thinking more about how we can get ahead of it before she's in that situation, and try to change what we can get ahead of time. Now, from the perspective of trying to still talk about that particular like form of abortion, we want to make sure that like we don't let there's like a stigma on later term abortion, on surgical abortion. Even if you're pro-choice, there's still a stigma on there. We want to make sure that we don't lose that stigma, as odd as that might sound, for earlier term or abortion pill procedures, because the same thing is happening. It's still a human life being taken. It's just via starvation, as opposed to dismemberment. So we still need to have that stigma that ultimately it is wrong to take the life, whether it's via a pill that starves or via a metal object that dismembers, right? So that's our conversation and messaging strategy. It is harder though, with the abortion pill, because to women it feels more like, oh, this is like birth control or something like that. Many pro-lifers still obviously have issues with, but it's less stigmatized, so it's more normalized. And we need to figure out ways to better engage on that particular issue, obviously. We're working on some strategies to try to do that. We don't have a perfect fix yet. We're hoping for some legislative changes, because telemedicine abortion
so dangerous for women too.
That's right. Like if it's ectopic, it could kill her. 11% of the time, a woman will end up with having to go to the hospital after taking these pills. But I will also say it is very interesting to think about the long-term effect of the abortion pill, because historically, when you had a surgical abortion, there would be a curtain up. The woman would really never see what happens. And they do it intentionally. They want to keep the child hidden away. But now, for the first time, there's going to be 600,000 women this year who are going to see their child, and they're when they give birth to this dead baby in their bathroom most of the time, right? And it's going to be interesting the effect that might have on people's perception of it in a more long-term way. As tragic as that is, if you go on Reddit and you look up abortion pill stories, there's hundreds and hundreds of women posting pictures and saying, what is this? I thought this was my period, but there's an actual baby here, and it's heart-wrenching.
That is devastating to think about. I forgot to write this question in advance, but one question I feel like people who get involved in abortion advocacy who are men will be confronted with is like, this is not something you should be involved in. Only women should. I was just curious, Kristen, if you heard that, like, how would you persuade someone who's a man to actually get engaged in the issue, that it's not just something that women have to be kind of working through, but that men should be excited to work in this kind of ministry?
We hear it often. I mean, when I handed the reins over to Trevor here a year ago, there were people who were like, wait, a guy leading a pro-life ministry? But the reality is that this is a human rights injustice, and we need both men and women to be involved in it. I think, the guys have to be careful to not approach it like, I know what you're going through, perhaps, but they can make the same argument that this is wrong and that need to do better for women and children. And, there's a woman certainly involved in these situations, but there's often a man as well who's either silent or cut out of the picture. And so equipping them to speak up and share their perspective and to advocate for their child is very important. And I think I actually want to see more men involved in this fight because it will encourage others to get off the sidelines and do what God created them to do, to be a people of justice and to protect, right?
Excellent. Thank you so much. I still remember the significant overturning of the Roe versus Wade decision. People may start thinking to themselves, like, aren't we kind of generally over abortion as an issue as a country? We've sort of won, if that makes sense. How would you persuade people that this is actually instead a time where we need to keep advocating, keep working to change people's opinions?
Yeah, I think that's really important because, yeah, it was this tremendous high of Roe being overturned after decades and decades of hoping and sometimes feeling hopeless that it would actually happen. To see in just such a few short years, it seemed like such judicial change that enabled it to happen. It was really cool to see. That being said, over the past 3 years, abortion numbers have actually risen in the United States. And every time abortion has been voted on, most voters have sought to not only legalize abortion, but to radically legalize it through all 9 months in states like Michigan and Ohio, Kansas, Missouri, even Florida. It technically failed in Florida, but it's only because they had a 60% threshold. In reality, 58% of people in Florida wanted to legalize abortion through all 9 months. Now, there's media lies, there's manipulation. People didn't know necessarily that's what it did. There's all sorts of reasons why. But in the end, a law was changed, a Supreme Court ruling was changed, but people are still comfortable with supporting the intentional killing of innocent human beings. And until there are no more abortions, there is an obligation for us as Christians to advocate for the vulnerable, I think.
Possibly now more than ever.
Yeah.
So in essence, your case is there's a federal opinion in terms of the law of the land, but that's not trickling down into people's opinions right now. There's a lot of people still voting, a lot of people still saying we're against what that federal court decided, basically.
Yeah, because like all that federal court said was basically it's up to the people to decide now.
Okay.
Back to the states. Yeah. So federally, there's not a law that bans abortion.
Yeah,
right. Okay.
9 months. Partial birth abortion is the only banned procedure in the United States federally. So it's kind of the Wild West right now as far as abortion regulations go, and unfortunately, for the most part, we're losing. So we have enough to strive really hard to fix that.
One other data point that people may think is changing is that it seems like clinics are closing. If people can still get pills, though, that's your concern, that people can get things in the mail, even if the
abortion clinics are closing, but abortion numbers are increasing.
Okay.
So instead of abortions happening at Planned Parenthood, they're happening now through the mail, unfortunately. So, it's great that these places of death are closing. I absolutely rejoice in that, but it's not an indication that we're winning. Unfortunately, we got a lot of work to do.
Yeah, and they're for the most part just consolidating, not necessarily because abortion numbers, even surgical abortion numbers, aren't going down significantly. It's more that there's a lot of doctors that are retiring, and there's still not a lot of doctors that want to be abortion providers. So I think a lot of them are consolidating into just fewer clinics, but still we're seeing the same rate or even more of abortions happening. So
very good. Well, last question, and I'd love to pray for you guys as well if you have time still, but what are you sort of most excited for right now and where your ministry's at and the way that things are going maybe in our state, in our context, and then what is one big concern or worry that you have about where we're at?
Share what I'm excited about. I think we've set our target 15 years out to say, what do we want Michigan to look like and what's our role in this? And we want to get to a place where we can repeal Proposal 3 and ensure that there are legal protections for the unborn. But in order to do that, we have to change a lot of people's minds. They're not on our side right now. That's where we're trying to go. And I am so excited that the picture for how to get there is starting to get very clear. Like I said, over the last few years, we've really started to hone in on what is it that changes people's mind, what touches their hearts and gets them to say, no, this is wrong. I don't accept it. I would vote against it. I would never have one. I'll tell my friends not to. And we know what moves people now. And like I said, we're seeing higher and higher numbers every year of people who change their mind. It's been 34%. We're getting closer to 40 this semester. 40% of people we talk to change their minds. And as that picture becomes more clear, I get more and more hopeful that we will be able to get our state back on track. So I have a lot of hope that we're moving in the right direction and that what we're trying to accomplish is actually feasible.
Yeah, I think the simplest way to kind of put it is we can change 34, 35, 36% of people's minds on the spot, which means we know how to change minds. Now it's just a question of like scale, logistics. We just need more people out there. That's an easier question I think to tackle than to try to figure out how to do it. So
how do you do more of it?
Yeah, exactly. So we're just seeing a revival, I think, of young people that want to go out and change the world and are starting to reject even some of the radical kind of postmodernist ideas that were really, really big 10, 15 years ago. People are reverting back to thinking that, I think there is such thing as truth. And I think I want to know what that is. And I think we have an opportunity to see the fruits of that in the coming years, not only for this issue, but for other kingdom issues as well. As far as like fears and things, I think one thing would just be the fear of like complacency or acceptance of abortion. I think Martin Luther King Jr. Said, and this is a paraphrase, but basically it's not really the Klansmen that most scares him for what he was trying to do in the civil rights movement. It's actually the apathetic white man, basically, is what he was saying. Like the one who's sitting back, observing it, but not doing anything and accepting it as true. It's not necessarily the abortion provider. It's not necessarily Planned Parenthood that is going to be our main potential obstacle. It's people who are Christian, have the right beliefs, but don't want to try to change the way that culture thinks about something and try to engage in the issue. So,
yeah, standing on the sidelines and often being critical is not that helpful. But having people who will actually engage and fight for the Lord's created beautiful children. Yeah. I did have, one last question. What campuses are you the strongest at right now? And if you could choose and sort of get onto 3 or 4 more campuses, where are you guys headed?
Yeah. We have really thriving groups, actually in the Detroit area, like Wayne State, and Eastern Michigan, right in Southeast Michigan. Really, really strong groups, strong student leaders. And
don't leave GV out there though. Grand Valley.
Yep.
Grand Valley. Okay.
Yeah, Grand Valley 2 years ago, we were like, we have got to like it was kind of just a little stagnant, but then we actually got a great student leader this past semester.
They're doing amazing.
She's coming on staff with us, and she's doing really great. But I'm really excited by what we're seeing in Detroit because it's the biggest city, obviously. The abortion rates there are by far the highest. Planned Parenthood thrives at targeting African American populations in particular. So being able to have such a strong, consistent presence in the nation's largest Black majority city is really, really cool. I think that we want to do even more. We have groups at like MSU and U of M. They're the top schools though. So my number one goal is to see those groups not only exist, but really start growing and thriving and expanding. And then we're also working on a plan to better support some of the Christian schools. Sometimes those are the hardest ones to work with because the administration has a little bit more control. We have less free speech rights and stuff on Christian campuses.
Sometimes
ironic.
But sometimes they think like this isn't a problem here.
Yeah. We're a bunch of Christian kids. We don't have abortion going on or anything like that, and
still have a responsibility. Though.
Exactly. So, and it still happens. There's if you stand outside what used to be the Grand Rapids Fulton clinic, there would be people going in there all the time with Hope and Calvin and Cornerstone sweatshirts, and it still happens. So,
Very good. If someone at our church thinks, man, this is really exciting, I want to support, I want to either give or jump into actually volunteering and getting involved, what would that look like? How would they do that?
There's lots of ways. Chris talk about some of the giving and things like that there's financial, you can like financially support it. you can help bring in other people. We have a vision dinner, for example, every year in Grand Rapids, and we need table hosts that invite their friends that might want to hear about the mission and become partners as well. And then the biggest thing, um, anyone can do, is going to be to help saturate our students, our staff in prayer, and our campuses in prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And we need more. We need more of that, just because it's intensely spiritual when you're doing this work. The devil, I think, rejoices every time the youngest image bearer life is taken, and I think he is very upset when he sees progress being made on the life issue. So praying for these students for courage, boldness, and perseverance. And then we do outreaches in the community. Most of the time we're on the college campus during the semesters, but in the summer, we'll have some events like in Grand Rapids that people can send people to or take part in. And then our internship is in Southeast Michigan, and that's when we bring in like 50 high school and college students. They live in housing for 3 straight months, work 40 hours a week, going out and reaching Southeast Michigan. So being praying for that, helping support that in particular, is a big need of ours.
Okay, excellent. Was there anything I left out before I pray for you guys?
I don't think so. We're just grateful for your church and your leadership and being willing to talk about this, not just for the sake of the unborn, but for their parents as well, who they need our voices. So thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, let me pray for your ministry. Father, thank you so much for putting on the hearts of Trevor and Christen, Lord, to do this work. I do pray that those that encounter advocates all around this state, Lord, and all around the country would hear and listen carefully and then have their minds changed, Lord. And we believe that both through natural means, Lord, and also supernatural means, Lord, you are transforming people around this country right now, which is really encouraging. And I pray that people would find both the truth about protecting the unborn, Lord, but also then be changed in their hearts to believe the gospel and to come into your church, Lord. I do pray for the campuses that Protect Life Michigan wants to get onto, and that there would be more doors opened up, Lord, particularly on these Christian campuses, Father, where we can assume that everyone's a Christian, so they're fine. And unfortunately, there's a lot of shame and hiddenness, Lord, where people seek abortions. And I just pray that you would open doors there and allow light and truth, Lord, and the grace of the gospel to shine in the hearts of people, even on Christian campuses, Lord, that desire to take the life of their child. Father, I pray that our young people here would learn through this means that they would want to get engaged in pro-life advocacy, Lord. And I pray that this would continue to grow, and that there would be laws, Lord, that make it criminal or to seek abortions in our country. We pray all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, great to get to chat. I'm going to end the recording here. All right.